Okay, so we talked a little bit about DMX and lighting and such with dimming, but let's talk about color. Is our final kind of question for this week is, sometimes I have this vision of what I want to achieve when it comes to creating color with uplights, and then there's the reality. And it just, I'm looking at the little graphs and things, and it just doesn't seem like it should be that hard, but I just cannot create some of the colors that I would like to have. What am I doing wrong?
Well, it's possible there are things you could do differently or better. It's also possible that you're trying to, dig a shovel with a spoon. This could be an equipment issue too. Mm-hmm. And I think if we look at the LED chipsets that are used in most DJ fixtures versus LED chipsets that are used in theatrical lighting or television lighting, where that color rendering and accuracy is really, it's not just more important, it's essential, right? We see some significant differences, right? There's the old adage, you get what you pay for. Mm-hmm. Now, that doesn't mean that DJs should go buy theatrical fixtures for their uplighting. It would depend on the client you're serving. The ROI just might not be there. But we also can't expect, a standard off-the-lot Chevy to perform like a Formula One car, right? They're built different. They're both cars, but that's about where the similarities end. So let's take a look at how this all works. And I've got some graphs here and some tips that I think maybe we can help get more out of those DJ level fixtures, and certainly be good enough, for most of our clients.
And Ben, before we get started now, if it really doesn't matter, a DMX signal is going to the light. It really doesn't matter what type of a DMX controller is sending the signal, because the signal is the signal.
Yeah, I would say it only really matters from the standpoint of what abilities the controller gives you to dial up a color. But if we're talking in the purest sense of just moving up faders 0 to 255 from a number of color values, whether they be red, green, blue, amber, white, red, green, blue, amber, white, UV, add in lime or mint or, whatever, but yeah. So,
okay. So
fundamentally,
really then it becomes, as you're saying, the fixture itself can really dictate the quality of the colors. Okay, just wanted to kind of clarify that.
Yeah, exactly. The console is going to make it easier or harder to, to manipulate those colors or to pull up, but the light itself is that's where the rubber hits the road, right?
Let's dig into it.
Yeah, so right now you're undoubtedly watching this show on some type of an LED or LCD screen, which probably uses red, green, and blue pixels, and it's accurately reproducing the whole spectrum. So some of this is going to seem somewhat counterintuitive, because you say, well, wait a minute, why can I do it on my TV screen or my computer screen or my phone screen, but I can't do it with a light?
Exactly. There's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you asked. Mm-hmm. So this is how the human eye fundamentally works, right? We have three cones in our eye, red, green, and blue, which, by the way, you'll notice there's no pink here. Pink is a figment of your imagination. So that is literally true. Pink doesn't exist. That's another show. But pink is made up in your brain. Boy, was my daughter really disappointed to hear that. But anyway, so Father of the Year. So that's all we see, really, is red, green, and blue light. And our brain interprets, if we see, something between green and red, we call that yellow. Our brain says, fine, that's yellow. All right. Another way of looking at that is here we have kind of an overlay of some spots, and you can see that where the green and the yellow overlap, our brain says, hey, that's yellow. Where the blue and the red overlap, our brain sees this fictional color that we call pink, and if we see red, green, and blue all together in a perfect world, we would see white. Undoubtedly, like the background you see on your screen right now, outside of this image, you probably see white. And that is comprised of red, green, and blue light information in the screen. So what gives when it comes to LED lights, right? Well, here is a spectral output of a LED light. They're not all the same, not even close, not even by a wide margin are they close. Huge variations between, again, in terms of quality and, manufacturers, and all LEDs are not tuned to the same wavelengths and blah, 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 blah. But for today's purposes, we're going to keep this simple. Mm-hmm. So here we can see the output of the blue LED. Here we can see the output of the green LED. Here we can see there's a pretty significant gap And then we can see this really poignant output of the red LED. And this is as opposed to a halogen lamp, which we see as a white light. And anybody who's ever seen a rainbow, and if you haven't, my gosh, you need to go outside sometime, but rainbows are sort of that prismatic separation of white light coming from the sun, that spectral content, back into these color components. Well, here we can see the spectral content of an LED lamp. And of course, they do look kind of warm. So we see a lot of that, red, yellow information here. Mm-hmm. So with an LED lamp, the way that we make color is by putting a filter in front of it, and that filter is removing the other colors and just letting the ones pass through that we want.
A halogen lamp.
Yep.
Yeah.
Did I say LED?
Yep. Or, yeah, halogen is we use the filters. Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Sorry. So on the halogen lamp, where we have full spectral output, that's where we put like a gel filter or something in front, and that's where we are then able to change that light to a color. Mm-hmm. So here we can see this is a technical data sheet from a Roscoe gel, and you can see how it's kind of really cut down a lot of this blue, and it's letting a bit of the yellow through and a bit more of the red, and it's showing us what is going to pass through from the original spectral content. Now, if we jump back, it would depend on how much of that you have too, right? You can't. The gel isn't going to add light; it's only going to subtract light. Mm-hmm. Well, in the LED world, it's very different. In the LED world, we're back to this sort of thing where we're adding red, greens, and blues to try to create colors. And if the content isn't there, that's where we can run into trouble.
Okay.
The other place we could run into trouble is the optics. And this is the biggest thing, really. The biggest thing, I think, is how those colors mix. So on the top left here, you can see, we'll call them bubble LEDs, but these are surface mount soldered, 5 millimeter, 10 millimeter LEDs, whatever. And they're individually colored. And, we remember these from older fixtures. Everybody knows the color mixing is not amazing. Mm-hmm. At a distance, it's more believable, but that's because those colors are starting to blend. Our brain is seeing those colors overlapping, and it's interpreting that and saying, oh, yeah, that is, in fact, yellow. All right. One of the ways they solved this problem was to add amber LEDs, because amber was a hard color to make. That was a big gap between green and red, right? Mm-hmm. Then, of course, we have SMD LEDs, where, these are surface mount devices, and within each of these are red, green, and blue, or red, green, blue, amber, white, or whatever it is now, right? But I'm just sticking with RGB color space for simplicity here.
Sure.
So that, behind these optics, and I will say this is a really good place to put this in here, the quality of the LED is very important. The quality of the optics is equally or more important. So we're back to that get what you pay for kind of thing, right? Sure. Quality of the light engine, quality of the optics. And then, of course, we can factor in the quality of the drivers and the ability to light that thing up. And then down here, we can see a chip on board. And it doesn't even look like there are LEDs here. It looks like one big solid circle.
Right.
And I have another picture that I found somewhere on the internet. I'd love to give credit where credit's due. I just don't even remember who I stole it from. So I'm sorry if this is your picture. I do apologize. Please sue John and not me. So here we can see these surface mount LEDs. And here we can see those surface mount LEDs, and here we can see that chip on board. So you can see that we can get a lot more LEDs in the same amount of space with chip on board or SMD, and thus the color mixing occurs behind those optics, and it's far more believable. It's our brain says, oh, case in point, your screen. If you magnified your screen, you would see red, green, and blue dots. But because we have so many dots per square inch on that screen, the dots are so tiny, your brain blurs them together and it sees white or amber or whatever. It says, oh yeah, I believe it's whatever color you put on the monitor. Mm-hmm. We're tricking ourselves basically. And let's do one more thing here. Let's go back to this. Let's talk about one other thing we haven't talked about, and that's not the light, but it's the surface. Let's talk about the wall or the table or whatever. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about what we are lighting up, right? Because that can be a real challenge too. So let's go back to our RGB color spectrum here.
Yep.
And again, let's take a note of what's missing. And again, remember the halogen, all this light information was here.
Yep.
And the LED, it's not. So one of my favorite slides from one of my presentations, I took the punchline out. You'll have to come to one of my live presentations to see the real punchline here, but it still serves the purpose. These are all objects that I think everybody knows are yellow, right? Bananas are yellow, rubber ducks are yellow, rubber chickens, thank you, Alan Trisler, are yellow. And if we look at the white sheet of paper in this picture, what color does it look like to you?
It looks yellow.
It looks yellow. So why does the white sheet of paper look yellow, but the things we know are yellow, the rubber duck, the rubber chicken, and the banana, why do they look orange?
No idea. And that's why we're asking.
Good. I was hoping you'd say that. If you stole my thunder, I'd have been very sad.
Yeah.
But the reason is we don't have any yellow light. There's no yellow light. This is a red and green LED being shined onto these objects. And on the white paper, the red and the green diffuse and reflect back to our eye, and our brain says, well, that looks like yellow to me because I see red and blue. Or excuse me, red and green. I see red and green, so I think it's yellow. So why doesn't it work with the yellow things? Well, the problem is the pigments in these things that make them yellow is absorbing everything but yellow light and reflecting that back. That's why they look yellow under white light. Same way that our filter removed things out of the halogen lamp and made it look like that color. The problem is there is no yellow light.
Okay.
We're not shining any yellow light on these objects. So they're reflecting back only the wavelengths that they can, which in this case
are the edges of those little LED.
Correct.
Yeah, that you just showed us that they're catching.
And it's far more prominently red.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's reflecting. That's why it looks orange and not yellow.
So we got only just a short bit of time here. To increase our ability to get more color options, you've mentioned different the Cobb LED with more colors. What are some common colors that people should be looking for when they're looking to buy an uplight that would give them the diversity they want?
Well, and again, all LEDs are not created equal. They're not all made in the same factory, contrary to what people believe. Even within the same factory, Ford makes the Fiesta and Ford makes the F-150. They're not the same, right?
Sure.
So, it would be silly to think that all lights really are the same. That's just factually not at all true. So, I can't paint everything with a broad brush, but I will say either really high quality theatrical type fixtures, where you've got, red, green, blue, lime, or mint are becoming really popular, amber, those kinds of things, or even most RGB AW, red, green, blue, amber, white, and UV fixtures are pretty good because we start filling in more of that spectrum. We now have a white LED, which is a lot of blue, really. We have an amber LED, which kind of lives right between that red and that green. And now, like all things, we see this technology precipitating down to where it's affordable and makes sense for DJs to own it. And we're seeing things with mint and lime. So, ADJ and Chevet Lighting both now are starting to release products with these diodes in them. And it's just amazing the color gamut you can create with it. You're like, wow, this is the restrictions are taken off, right? I really can believably create most of the visible light spectrum for my clients. And it gives us some resources to work with pigments and things that we have to, if we're trying to light up a surface, I don't know how many times you light up a rubber chicken, but, let's just say we're trying to light up a darkly painted wall or, a heavily pigmented paint, and we're absorbing a lot of the useful wavelengths we have, and we only have a couple diodes to work with. Now having some more options can help kind of fill in those gaps.
Yeah.